Yeah, I thought I'd just take a quick moment and explain what you're about to see. I got had the pleasure of talking to Dawone Cornish yesterday. It's almost a year ago exactly. I got to talk to him in a little valley in Santa Fe at the last High Desert Human Design Conference, and really enjoyed it. And we've kind of kept in touch casually ever since. We've been talking about meeting to have a chat, possibly have it turn into a podcast. But it was always like, let's just meet and chat. And so what you're going to see here is us just having a Zoom call that at the end of it, we were like, hey, we should just share this. So it's probably a little less interview format and certainly just start super casual, which is kind of the way I like it. But I thought I'd just take a moment and explain why it's a bit different and why the Zoom quality and the timestamp is there. But without without talking any further, because I seem to be reaching for words I don't need, enjoy it, because I did too.
Hey, Sean.
Dude, how's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good. How
Good.
about you?
Really good. Yeah, it's been a tough couple of weeks, but like it's like a plane that takes off and energetically, and then it needs to land, and then disembark all the passengers, fuel up, and go again. So today I'm
Gotcha.
flying, and it's comfortable. It's clear.
Ah,
So
gotcha.
one quick thing for you, because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I went every time I go looking for your stuff online, like your because I've referred your document on the design of plants, for example, to people.
Mhm.
Never find you if I look for your name. I have to remember. Oh, right, he calls his site "Design for the People," and that it's Buy Me a Coffee, and then I can find your page. So I don't know if
Ah,
tactical, because if that's the case, it's I have to remember that you called it Design for the People, and I don't even remember like the names of my nephews and nieces. I remember your name. So you may, if unless you don't want to be found by your name, you may want to like somewhere in the page just put like my name is, because Google's
mm,
not seeing you at all. Like I
okay.
typed Dwan, is it Dwan or Dwone or
Dawone. Yeah.
Dwan? If I type your name and buy me a coffee, nothing. If I type your name, buy me a coffee, and design for the people, it appears, but Google
Hmm.
says zero matches on your name, like zero.
Mm.
So maybe,
That's kind of cool. I kind of
maybe
like that.
yeah.
No, I'm kind of cool with that, and it works for my design because I'm not really the face of a business or the operation or the group. I'm just kind of like a worker bee.
Mhm.
So yeah, it really is about, I guess, human design for the people, and I'm just not about being in the spotlight, being in the limelight. If there was to come a time when that was the case for me, it would be later in life, just not right now.
Why do you say that based on your design? Is there something in your design that tells you so, or
Well, it's a couple things or a number of things. For one, I'm a six line, and our time comes, it's coming towards Um, well, I'm on the roof as a six line for one, and so I'm still on the roof, and we haven't moved into the six line cycle yet. Well, with the global cycle in 2027, it'll be a six line theme, and so if you're right oriented, or if you're a six line, or if you have a harmony to the six line, which will be a third line, then you have you have a certain kind of alignment to that cycle. And so and also in my nodes, I'm an observer. I'm not geared to be observed. And so that also means like heard and a lot of other things. So, but not to say that it's just black and white. Nobody ever noticed me or hear me. That would be ridiculous. But as far as consistencies go, I'm not here to consistently just be out and be seen, and it's taken some time to really get used to it because most people want to be seen, they want to be saw, and also if you feel like you're of value or you have some value, you want people to see you and you want to be noticed or whatnot. But I've come to see that most of like the magic that I see in life and the mundane and myself and things like that is just for me. I just for me to observe. It's not really for everybody else. And so yeah, I just have to play my little role.
Hmm. So interesting. My wife's a 6'2", and she's sort of coming off the roof now. And as a 3'5", I am surrounded by 6'2s and 4'6s lately.
Mm,
And what's really interesting is I did not get on well with 4'6s before.
yeah.
In fact, two of them were just about the death of me, like literally narcissistic
Wow.
or sociopathic, even one of them. But I also now fully realize that there was a dissonance between me and them. Jonah Dempsey said something really valuable once where he talked about like, between a 3'5" and a 4'6" on a piano keyboard, it's going to be dissonant, instead of da da, it's like
Mm,
da da.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
that was what was going on with these people. And I think
Mm,
I worked so hard trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me and them using design
mm,
that it made
mm-hmm.
me vibe my outer authority cleaner. That now these 4'6s are appearing everywhere. And I started with distrust with them because as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, fuck, here we go again. Right. And then,
Right. Right.
but like totally different now, like in the last 8 months, like just different resonance. So,
Mm, awesome. Awesome.
yeah, and you said some other things that were really interesting. Like 2027 and all that. We've entered the age of Aquarius, and I'm an Aquarius. Like there's so many interesting things about like numbers and timing and stuff. Like it's a really weird time. It's a very, very
Yeah.
time energetically. So
Yeah. According to the wheel, like this Rave Mandala wheel, we don't enter into Aquarius until after the Sleeping Phoenix. But in the grand scheme of things, when you think about each cycle being 400 years and the total like age of Pisces being what, like 19,000 years and some odd number, 400 years is nothing. We're pretty much already in Aquarius, but according to the gates and the degrees, that comes at the end of the cross of the Phoenix, which is like 2030s. No, yeah, it's about 400 years from now, basically. We're at the tail end of Pisces. And so, and the age of Aquarius is kind of in alignment with the rave pentas becoming a thing because it's supposed to take a few hundred years or whatnot for them to like be able to merge into a penta just because of how spaced out they will be and other factors in life that I don't know about right now.
mhm.
And then, but once that happens, it starts a chain reaction. But it's kind of in alignment with the age of Aquarius too.
Hmm. Um, so interesting.
Yeah.
Let me just get the door. They're watching a movie in the next room and I can't hear myself think. So I mean, here's one question I wanted to ask you because it sounds like I think you've listened to a lot of the original Raw stuff, right? Which I've never been able to do. I just can't sit still long enough to do it. So I just get sound
Yeah.
bites, right?
Gotcha.
And some of the company that I've been keeping lately, were around Raw around that time, and so I'm hearing different things, and the whole idea of 2027 and sort of like a prophecy, and this like a lot of people talk about it with fear and or like monumental change. And it seems to me that it's happening sooner than that. Like we're experiencing those changes right now, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I know I've heard or seen somewhere else that some folks actually disagree that we're entering the cross of the sleeping phoenix. I've seen, and I don't even know where that
Mm.
comes from. Different, I'm gonna probably use the wrong term, but like sidereal astrology or something. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of debate around all that stuff, right?
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I do wonder and worry at sometimes that we're taking what Ra was was talking about too seriously, and was he actually correct? And
Yeah.
a big part of that for me is like, so I have this friend, Dr. Eleanor, and she has her own downloads, and talking to her is like just
Hmm.
level. She reminded me or told me, and I don't know if you've heard this, but like Ra had predicted his own death and had said that he would be shot by a woman that he gave a reading to. And that never happened, right? Like he was incorrect. He had a heart attack. So like that prediction that he was talking about never happened. And what's interesting is yet I'm meeting other people like her that have had their own, she was told to the minute when she would meet her husband of the last 40 years. And or when listening to Chetan Parkin talking about how he was told, that he would be writing a book on a new system, and like it's just very interesting. Like there's other people that seem to have been given predictions that were accurate, but I'm not sure how many of Ra's were actually accurate. And so are we putting too much
Mm.
weight on this 2027, which sounds awful, arguably, like depending on how you interpret it, right? And again,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of not listening to all his stuff. So I just get sound bites from many people and kind of look for the patterns. And the one
Right.
pattern that emerges is that, February 15th, 2027, it's not like some sort of like a clock ticks and the world changes. I realize there's years on either side of that, even possibly hundreds, where we mutate because we're supposed to. But
Right.
yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
not
The
sure if
whole
that's
thing.
a good question or not, but
Oh,
that's just where my head's at.
yeah, give me something to respond to, nonetheless. What you said about feeling the 2027 events, I feel like, from my observation, yeah, they're already being seen. And it's just like, because it's so close and that we're dealing with these grand time frames, a few years, 20 years, 30 years, that's nothing. And we're not dealing with just definitive like slices, to where we're walking through a literal wall or something, or a literal gate. It's just it's frequency, it like blends into each other. And so what's coming is already here, and what's leaving is already falling, right now. And it's just going to continue in that trend, in my opinion. And if the solar plexus mutation is a thing, and these other factors, they're going to be the like that wild card, that's thrown in the deck when we thought we had everything mapped out. We thought we knew, this was going away and yada yada yada, but then something else unseen hits us from beneath the surface, and just changes everything. Like, I've heard multiple stories about the whole Raw thing as well, as far as how he was going to die. I heard it initially from the guy who introduced me to human design, and Deirdre, she knew him as well. His name was Don McKinney, and he was out in Germany when Raw was teaching out there. And so he stayed with them for about 9 months. And he told me, before I got plugged into the HD community online, he told me that the voice told him when he was going to die, and that Raw didn't believe it, yada, yada, yada. And then later, when I was online, I heard people saying that they heard from Richard. I forgot his last name, but he was a 6'3", and he transitioned. They said he had got a reading from a Vedic astrologer who told him he was going to die at 63. And um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And there are things that we have to be, we have to look at it at that level, to where, there are levels to where we don't know. We won't ever know because we were not there, and we were not meant to know, apparently, because we weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the ability to discern, thankfully, depending on where we are with that faculty. And so that's just on our for us to do our due diligence on what to give weight to and what not to. And so what I've observed is a lot of people want to be like Ra Uru Hu. They want to be the messenger. They want to be the leader, the teacher, the bringer of this new knowledge that's going to set everybody free. Like, even I was on that path just coming up as a youngster, getting into esoterics and metaphysics and things. And, you start to have experiences and you're like, wow, nobody's around me having these experiences. I must be something special about me. Let me tell the world on some fifth line stuff. And the thing is that it's not uncommon to have a mystical experience as far as being something that's wired within our design. We're wired for those kind of experiences. Not everybody gets to experience them, and it's not a bad thing that everybody doesn't, but some people do. And just like Ross said with his, it was a hell of a weight to bear. It was painful. It wasn't freaking, rainbows and freaking, any kind of, glimmer and lights and flashing things, and they're all feel good stuff. And that's what the new age community has been pumping out for the longest. It's all one love and peace and, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, but not to say that, like, a lot of human, like, from the cosmology, basically what I see a lot of times is that we are jumping the gun with a lot of things, like being immortal. A lot of people, even today, think they can live to be, they want to be immortal. But according to the cosmology, that's a future life form, a future stage of ours, not for us right now. Now, there may be anomalies to where, I don't know. I don't know. there's always a anomaly or some kind of nuance to the whole thing, and to where somebody can be experiencing something to some degree right now, but while everybody else isn't. And so, just to say that, yeah, just the influence of the propaganda, the New Age movement, and a lot of people just don't really factor in how, I guess, diabolical the not self can be, and how there are not self people conspiring together to do, dastardly deeds. Like, that is a thing. And if people are doing it, people will do it in any kind of movement that they see as, detrimental to what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And even human design can be something like that. I feel like human design can be one of the most, like, yeah, one that is primed for it. It's just, if it hasn't already been infiltrated, it will be. Mm-hmm. If it won't be banned, for some reason, because of the secrets that it unveils, and people might be like, I don't want this kind of information to be released to anybody. And now you got your next door neighbor with your body graph and, all your secrets and stuff. But just speaking to Eleanor and like Chaitan, yeah, I don't know their stuff enough to like say anything about their work, and their perspectives. I feel like it's really awesome that people can come and build on the foundation of what Ra did, of what he laid. And to me, Ra is just what he said. He's a messenger. He's not some deity. He's not somebody I worship. He's not somebody I follow. He's a teacher and somebody I learned from. And I feel like it's about just having a solid foundation, and yeah, the foundation needs to be tested. And his transmission is not one that we can say what cannot have errors within it, because it definitely could have errors. And I feel like he did a really good job. and we all, have the fractal factor to where not everybody is supposed to get it from Raw, and not everybody who hears Raw is going to hear the same thing.
Mhm.
And we all are supposed to hear from, different people and at different times and in different degrees and whatnot. And what I what like repels me from the works of like Eleanor and some other people is I feel like they unnecessarily feel like they have to trash Raw, like, and I feel like the judgmentation and the standards of how a messenger should look and behave is skewed in many cases.
Mhm.
And it's really an education for humanity to see that somebody can be um, given this kind of a task and connected with like these certain consciousnesses that he was, said to be connected with during his whole process, and they still operate like humans. Like they're not robotic and just void of, they can't curse and they can't, do make any mistakes and things like that. I think it's a big education because the seven center world that we adopted after it had already been like stripped of so much, like
Mhm.
our history, our like sciences, and so much has been bastardized. We've been having to pick up the pieces, and so we were kind of like handicapped in a sense. And so thankfully we got an upgrade. I think a reset is like what human design is to me what it is. It's like a continuation, a progression, and there will be people continuing after what Ra laid, building on top of the foundation, and the foundation of the places we live in, the places we go into is looks a lot different than what you build on top of it.
Mhm.
It's just how it is. And so I think a lot of people can misunderstand or misidentify what they're actually seeing in that sense.
Mhm.
Like that, wanting to question, are you doing this based on the foundation, based on Ra's, works and whatnot? Just because it may not look like and sound exactly like what he said, but it still can honor the simple principles that were brought. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
That's my long-winded answer.
No, no, it all makes sense. There's so much to respond to there. No, I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute. And well, so actually, I know what I want to say. Ra was a soul having a human experience. He was given something that was painful to receive, and then it was painful to deliver. Like
Yeah.
I've seen videos of him where I think he was in Sweden and he's got this, the old projector, and and he looks like a madman and must have felt like one, right? And people are like, but what he said had so much truth in it that like if you sat long enough, you probably like you couldn't leave your chair. But can
Mm.
you imagine when he walks in and he's talking about all these neutrinos and stuff, and like he was right, like there was I guess this 10-year phase where he was talking about neutrinos had mass, and he was being totally
Yeah.
crazy, and then all of a sudden NASA all of a sudden is like, hey, it turns out neutrinos have mass, like,
Yeah.
but like, and that probably still didn't give him the credibility that he would have hoped for by that point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know a guy who he's an amazing author, and he's wrote a book that I think it has the ingredients to start like World War III, and it's not like a compliment, like "ooh, you can start World War III," but just the amount of truth that's in it. And he pumps it out on Facebook, and he gets just very few people participating or engaging with him. Like 20 people, 50 people, or whatnot, and he gets like very I guess kind of angry or frustrated with that, So I can imagine somebody like Rob with what he brought and just getting, but he did get a certain amount of attention, but it took a while, didn't it? It took a while. And in the beginning, I bet he
Yeah.
was very just yeah, I don't know. I don't know his how he was delivering it because he's a manifestor. He's gonna see it in his own way, and but yeah, definitely a unique journey, and I don't want it, you know.
No, no, I don't think I could have handled it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've heard this or where I've heard it or saw, but like it sounds like those first 10 years would have been he didn't even really understand what he had either in him. Like it had to be he had to be
Hmm.
asked questions, he'd hear himself say it, and then be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, now I get it." So like
Yeah.
even a lot of the conversations I've had with Eleanor is, her and her husband would be asking him questions, and then he would get switched on, like, "Oh, there's that," right? Like he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
access it himself. So can you imagine
Mm-hmm.
like your initial, like where did it start? Did he like come off out of this place and he stumbled into a coffee shop and until someone asked him how his day was and then he started speaking like someone went, "Oh, this guy did anything?" Like what was
Right.
that experience, right?
Yeah.
So it took years, I think, just to even get enough out of him that he was starting to make sense even to himself,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
People have been studying people who have had encounters or people thought were the embodiment or the incarnation of certain when I say I want to say deities, gods, because based on the cosmology, no deity or god is greater than us, or more important. They just play a different role,
Mhm.
you know. It's one, and so with Ra, I find it very fascinating to study like his encounter and his life to different degrees, because it is a encounter to that magnitude of our lifetime, and these things don't happen in everybody's lifetime. It's not just like a yearly, annual type of thing. There can be hundreds or even thousands of years at times before certain incarnations of this magnitude take place, or encounters of this magnitude. And so, yeah, I find that you can find value in it, but seven centered traditions, or at least what we get to interpret or decipher from those seven centered traditions, tend to lean towards like worship and just straight servitude and that kind of stuff, but not just observation to just learn a different aspect of how life works.
On the topic there of like downloads and having one and like your body or container being a satellite dish ready to receive it, it seems like the information and the tactics for getting there are like being exposed left, right, and center. At least in front of my eyes, it's basic things like stop taking fluoride because it calcifies your pineal gland, which turns off your third eye, right? Basic
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So I haven't used fluoride in 2.5 years, at least when I brush my teeth. It's still in the water here, so I
Mm-hmm.
do what I can to filter it out. But
Right.
I had no connection to spirit or source 3 years ago whatsoever. Then had a plant medicine experience that woke me right the fuck up, but still couldn't explain
Mm-hmm.
it. But then
Mm-hmm.
it's like a year after that of getting really curious about why are people talking about fluoride and why are they talking about the Nazis when they talk about fluoride and all these things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what, I'm gonna try going without fluoride. And I've had so many profound experiences and my teeth are healthier now. Like without a doubt, I've always had problems with my teeth and my last 2-year checkups are like crystal clear. So
Wow.
so
Awesome.
I don't need more evidence than that. That's
Yeah.
just so between that and I've gotten into Tai Chi Gung recently by recommendation, and just the movement of energy, and now I'm a first degree Reiki and with like solid lineage and like just these
Mm.
things that we all have access to, and really would just be like carve half an hour out of your day to do these basic
Yeah.
that I never saw value in. I saw other people
Mm-hmm.
doing it. My grandparents used to do it. It's crazy.
Mm. Yeah.
My grandparents were trying to get me to go to it, and I was like, not interested, right?
Mm.
So, and now it's like, oh my God, that was like, it's just so valuable. And,
Right.
yoga, having opened a sort of yoga studio here in Victoria, um, I really had no idea. Like there's 250 types of yoga, right? And one is yoga, which is yogic sleep. And then there's, this and that. And, it was kings and queens that did yoga. The
Mm,
commoners didn't. And yet
mm,
now, so like we all have access to this kingly self-care. And,
right,
you
right.
know, people won't do it. And every day that I do it, I'm still can feel the resistance in my body. And then after I
Mm.
do it, I'm like, what were you thinking? But every
Yeah,
single day,
yeah.
it's still like such a bad habit to knowingly and willingly punish myself with shitty energy.
Yeah. It's
So,
conditioning, man. Conditioning is so powerful. Like,
mhm,
and it hits us on so many, every level. And like with Ra, he went through a detox, crazy deconditioning before his encounter, like like shitting out black sludge at some point. I know there had to be some crazy bacteria or parasites, to come out of them
mhm.
because yeah, that's a crazy topic that I've been venturing down the past number of years, as far as just the influence of parasites and the microbiome on our consciousness, because I feel like they affect our decision making.
Uh,
Kind of like what you're saying. Just the daily routines of doing this and doing that. Um, yeah, the internal bacteria determine most of it. They determine they want to eat the crappy stuff or they want to eat the good stuff, depending on which ones are inside of us. And they help our centers, every one of our glands and organs operate. It's a crazy, fascinating topic, at the same time. But it's
I've got,
very, yeah.
I was
No, go
gonna say,
ahead.
I've got a book, and the guy's now producing videos where he like 1 minute shorts where he talks about sections of the book. It's called the Book of Wisdom, and it is fascinating. It talks about the what even the colors of the vegetables that we're eating. It goes
Mm,
into detail about like the chimney in the Santa Claus scenario is actually like former us trying to say, like going up and down the back and spine of the Kundalini. And like
oh,
it's
yeah.
just tied of how we've been misled by every organized religion, but they're all actually have the same message, which is it's all this Kundalini stuff, right? And so
Yeah, it's the body. It's
it's
just, yeah.
so fascinating. And we punish the body and we don't eat food and we wear rubber soled shoes so we're not connected to the ground, so we're not discharging our batteries and
Yeah,
we're getting cooked in hospitals, right? You go to a hospital to heal, but you're on a metal bed on rubber sheets because they don't want to deal with urine, on rubber
hmm,
wheels, and there's every single electronic they could throw at you plugged into your body or flying around. So every single energy is just you're just being cooked in hospitals. Like there's really
right,
benefit trying to heal there. Never mind all the disease around you and people that want to do good work, but they're so frustrated that they literally can't. They can't.
right.
They just want to go home. They want to get the hell out of there. So they're not doing their best work. It's
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so wild to, like on one end, like you said, we have it better off than we had it back in the day, education wise, for sure. People were really, compared to right now, most people are really dumb. And it was just the elites, the royal families, and those groups of people who had the knowledge. But most people didn't have a book. They couldn't even read. And now we have really sophisticated like hospitals and things like that, services. But at the same time, we we see like I guess they've been infiltrated in a way, those systems, because I think those services are a part of the cross of planning. It is supposed to be things that would prolong our life, things that would have a foundation for more life, more children, the family and everything, all these services. But at the same time, at some point came a distortion of that frequency that, the not self. Because from my perspective, it's like, because people ask, where did the evil come from? Where did the bad come from? And like in the cosmologies, there is no devil, there is no evil being or evil entities like that. A lot of the bad, the negative stuff that happens to us is like by our own doing, our own ignorance, because yeah, just our own ignorance, and ignorance can manifest in a lot of different ways, and so it's yeah, it just got real bad, and we're at a point right now where it's kind of, if the cycle, the global cycle, like you said before, is it true? Is it real? And that's, like I said, on us to do our due diligence, and we can go back in time, go back in the records, and we can, spend time analyzing these different cycles, if we really want to know, and we can see if there's correlations or not. From what I've observed, there are definitely correlations. Um, Even without knowing 2027 was coming, I would see things like a climax building, regardless, based on my six line on the roof trajectory or perspective. I've seen a bunch of, like things that are popping right now, conspiracies, and not like, for me, conspiracies aren't all theories. Some conspiracies are real because people get together and they conspire together. It's natural, but there are like conspiracy theories that I think are are here as psychological tactics to spin the mind and to keep us not honoring our instincts. That's how Y2K did me. I thought Y2K was going to be a real thing. And so I didn't make certain decisions like to go to college and to do other certain things because I felt like it was just going to go to shit. And I had learned about too many conspiracy theories or too many conspiracies before then. And I was like, information overload and getting information at the wrong time and in the wrong way, it can be a bad thing. It can be very detrimental. Yeah, I forgot how I got to that, but yeah.
No, but now, so that's so cool because you just made me think of my Y2K experience and a just like flashback, like just big picture moment there. But I was in IT, I was a technologist, and I was at the top of my game in 1999. Like I was living in Bermuda, I was traveling all over the world, I was being flown everywhere. I was the fixer in
Mm,
technology. And then this Y2K thing is coming, and there's all this talk of like the planes are going to fall out of the sky and bank vaults are going to
hmm.
close permanently, these giant train tracks, and and
Yeah.
get in to change the microprocessor to add, the two digits on the end and all this stuff. And I was like caught up in updating computers all over the place and all this stuff for 3 years. And then Y2K comes and nothing happened.
Right.
Literally nothing happened, right? And we lost, like, I felt immediately like I lost all credibility, even though I was like really
Mm,
good at my job and really did everything. My
hmm.
whole field, every one of us, all of a sudden, we weren't valued the same way, right? That we were
Mm,
gods. Like it used to be like I had access to the firewall or I had access to the main passwords. Like it was like you were God. You were the
yeah.
executive of the company. Were always afraid of me, even though I would never wield such power. I mean, I have
Yeah.
stories on that, but my whole field lost credibility, and I stayed in that field for another 23 years because it was my job, and I had employees, and I'd
Hmm.
taken on more than I should have. That wasn't mine, um, but it sucked, man. You know,
Because you charge them money for like to do things before like Y2K or in lieu of Y2K, and
I,
they were
I wasn't
upset.
too worried about that because the work I was doing, I knew I was upgrading other things. Like it forced them to upgrade software that was 15 years old and was too slow, anyways, right? So there was a
Right.
net benefit from that. I just could immediately feel, and maybe it's that fifth line thing. Like people always,
Mm,
like, I mean, instantly my credibility was gone, and it wasn't.
got you.
I had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it, but it's
Dang.
like it's like a light switch, right? But then I
Yeah.
stuck with it because it's what I did, and it was my identity and all that stuff. And so,
Yeah.
literally, like 3 years ago, when I had my sort of shamanic weekend, that was like since then I have not gone back to work as an IT guy. I do technology here and there, and people ask me advice, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't go back and do that job anymore. And so it's like
Mm.
broke as fuck right now because I'm still listening to all that. But yeah, what a mess. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, man. No,
Trippy going down that path for a second there.
it's for another reason. It was a good lesson for me because even today, there are crazy conspiracy theorists who pump out a lot of things like Y2K. Like even they're still pumping it out, and it's continuing to get people in that state. I forgot the name of this. It's a crazy word, but it just means like you just don't know what to do. You just, and since you don't know what to do, you don't do nothing.
Hmm.
And on some level, that could be cool because I think a lot of what humans do is unnecessary. And we are moving towards a time where we're probably going to do a lot less of that crap and do a lot more of what was essential for the moment.
Hmm.
Hopefully. But I mean, I ain't gonna say hopefully because if it does come to that, that would probably mean a lot of people would end up suffering. Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't factor in. But nonetheless, it's just good. It's good to see those events take place for me and just be like, oh man, I was really tripping. Like it was not that bad, and just relive the situation and try not to get fooled again. I
Hmm.
don't. I like to Yeah, I like to lean into my body, and I've learned to trust my instincts. I love learn to trust, like my body shocks me and it amazes me. And I think that's a part of this process too, is you get more and more centered into your body. You start to watch yourself, your movements. Oh, you can catch this from it falls and hit the ground, and you catch it, and just like your body. I like, for me, my mind, the way it's wired, I can't, like if it was I was untying a knot, I couldn't sit there and look at it and like be like, okay, I have to move this one here and do this, that. I can't think myself through it. I have to just let go and allow my body to untie the knot. And it's crazy to witness your body just untying something and you just watching it. So, but I attribute that to me having a left brain, a strategic body, and a right mind. My mind isn't, it's not built like that. And so, yeah,
That's interesting. I'm quad left,
quad
so
left.
all
Yeah.
left. But what you just said there is has been my experience as well. So maybe there's some other correlation there, but um, yeah, dude, a bunch of things you said here are resonating. Like I recently, and the thought had never occurred to me at all until like 4 weeks ago that consciousness itself is an energy, right? A vibration. And so there's different, like I never thought of it as like how we think as being a radio wave at the same time. And once I
Hmm.
started thinking about that recently, that's been a whole different thing. And so uh, a conversation that I've had more than twice this week has been like, how come the CIA hasn't picked up on human design, right? Like, if they want to actually control, why haven't they? And
I think they
complicated.
have.
You think so? Hmm.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if they haven't, just based off of everything else that they seem to have tapped into.
Hmm.
And it's something that can be a threat to national security. Like it's not no little bitty thing. Like if somebody with a dastardly, with a malevolent enough mind wanted to do something, with this knowledge, I think they could.
Hmm.
Like it has a lot of great benefits. I think it can help with, cloning, the whole technology sector, health, and on and on. But it can also be a detriment to that kind of stuff as well when
Hmm.
it's just in the wrong hands, because it's simply from the standpoint of it just being knowledge, accurate knowledge about somebody else. We have CIA, Central Investigation Agency, or Intelligence Agency. So like that's their thing, and the FBI, like all those alphabet gangs. I would be so surprised that they would be so stupid not to have looked into it, because it's not like if they look into it, they're automatically going to be enlightened or anything. We have people studying this shit for 10 years and they still the same. It's knowledge that you can apply. It's a life science. And
True,
so,
it's your experiment, so it'd be hard to collectively agree on. And where that came from is there's this guy on YouTube doing the rounds, and he's like a former CIA agent, and he kept talking about how they use Myers-Briggs. That's all they need to figure someone out. They just like
mhm,
in 30 seconds they've got like a technique, and they've mapped out their target.
yeah.
So, but now, as you were talking, I'm like, oh, of course, maybe he, like, at his level as a spy, that was the tooling, right? He hadn't moved into the next container within the
Mhm,
organization. And then, even as I say that, you know, I've been fascinated with Masons, stonemasons, Freemasons, and stuff, because it turns out that my both my grandfathers and my uncle were stonemasons or Freemasons or whatever, and no one ever
mhm,
mentioned it to me ever in my life.
mm,
And now I live right across the street from one. And so I got really curious about it. And like they really, as far as I can tell, like the tree of life is a deep part of their stuff, right? And Manly P. Hall was like the highest order. He was a 33rd level
mhm,
Mason, and that's the 33 vertebrae. And like it's all tied to the tree of life. And I'm like, okay, so never mind human design. They've just been aware of the tree of life, which is obviously foundational for part of the human design synergy. Like, of course, they just had access to this stuff and kept it very, very private and exclusive, right? It was more kingly information access. That's all it was. They were just
mhm.
keeping others from having access to it.
Yeah,
So,
totally. That's like all the stuff that's supposedly hidden in the Vatican vault, you know. Um, we, like I was saying or alluding to, is the information that a lot of us have access to. It's that kind of stuff that those Freemasons have access to. But like the more original of the text that you have, the higher quality the information is going to be, and the better chance the individual has of understanding and comprehending what it is. But over time, a lot of information has been um, manipulated. A lot of books have been, had pages torn out, information's taken out, information added. As people begin to read and as people start to know that, like, this is the art of war, and people have been aware of this kind of stuff for thousands and thousands of years.
yeah.
Like, the strategic mind has been at its tip top, for a long time. Manipulation and all of that. And so, yeah, those Freemasons, and it's not just a tree of life. They know about astrology, and so it's like, imagine somebody getting access to the records that those ancients, left, right? They got the records. And so they decipher that. And then, imagine somebody who goes to the library today and they get a astrology book. There's going to be, like totally different quality of information. Typically it would be. Um, and I think that was the case. You had people who had the original text, like people who got source information from Raw, and then you got people who got the old, later dissemination of it, whether it's high quality or not, and all in between. And so I see that as a big issue, that's taking place right now, because we are in the information age, but there has been a lot of misinformation flooded into the age as well to control and manipulate people,
Mhm. At
So
the same time, it seems like there's transmissions happening all the time now. Like I see
yeah,
myself on
yeah.
YouTube channels, and people are, like Bashar, and everyone's channeling, and they're all delivering messages. And there's a general theme, which is like the aliens are coming. But
Hmm.
besides that, there's like everyone's got their own
Yeah.
take. And is it the frequency that they're in, that they're pulling this information in? There's one woman, her name is like Gita or something. And for a couple of weeks, I was just transfixed on her. Like it was like I feel like she's giving me something that I'm supposed to hear here.
Hmm.
One thing that she said, and I'll butcher this, but she said, one night she said the heart is leaving Bali, and it's entering the solar plexus. So she made it, but it wasn't a heart, but it was like that. It was like something tangible that humanity needs, used to be in Bali, and is now entering the solar plexus. And so in my mind, I'm like, how does a place become something that's inside all of us, for one? But even as she said it, I've heard from a number of people that like people there's an exodus from Bali. Like a lot of healers and people in that sort of spiritual space were just like, no, the vibe's done. I'm done here, and they're like kind of leaving. So
Mm.
I'm talking about half a dozen people. So it's not like
Yeah.
but like it's like this
I
vibe,
feel you.
right? And
Hmm.
then and again, I don't really understand all this, but like there's the one channel that's splitting in 2027 that leads to the solar plexus, the
1949.
right? And so that's where
Yeah.
my head went with what this woman said, but she was just channeling it, right? She's sitting there and she's kind of having her sort of Bashar type experience, and
Hmm.
it's all very, I'll say alien to me, but almost like she seemed like an alien, right? Just a little robotic. It's right. It's the channeling, and I just
Yeah.
we're channeling all over the place. And
Yeah.
so, like, is it a million messengers now? And how confusing is that?
Man.
Like,
Well,
what
there's
station do I tune into, or is it the
right
station this week? Which is also
now.
because I feel like I'm bouncing between these people. It's
Yeah.
almost like I'm in different uh, frequencies of consciousness, and I'm like, oh, and then so it's almost like, which space do I want to be in?
Hmm. That might be your unique path, to bounce through them. Because there's supposedly at least 42 different paths to the source, according to the cosmology that Ra was given. There used to be 66, and it's pertaining to the fixed stars. There were 66 of them, and now there are 42 of them. And those represent different pathways of knowledge to get to the source. And granted, those 42 pathways are going to look different for every single being that takes it. So there's just like with a profile or an aura type, there's a shit ton of nuances, within that. Those are just kind of generalizations to help our minds be able to comprehend what it is. Um, and so I feel like people like Bashar and there's other people. Oh yeah, first I want to say about the woman, about the heart sensor and whatnot. Just as far as like reality goes, is we're like everything that's on the outside of us is on the inside of us. A lot of things we have in society, like policemen and all these different the school teachers, like all these people play cellular roles inside of our body. There are electronic devices, and everything that's internalized. We build it outside of us. That's just how it works. And even on the macrocosmic scale, we're supposed to be part of a developing child. And so things don't look like things aren't what they really look like. Just off top. And so when it comes to the people, I feel like I wrote a spoken word one time when I lived in Hawaii, and I would go out and perform like once a week or whatnot. And at the end of it, end of one of them, and this is before human design. I said I was thankful that I think the creator sent more than just one this time. I'm butchering it. I forget what it is, but basically, it's like, yeah, it's not just one. You know, there's a lot of us. There's everybody, and it's just us expanding our awareness and getting beyond just that single one path, that one person, that one way of being, and taking authority for our own. But a lot of that, like we have to grasp the root of, I think, creation, and that's what I love about the cosmologies, because it's about the root, the foundation. Because if your foundation is solid, everything else is going to be okay for the most part. But like we're all capable of having those kinds of experiences, like being the channel like Bashar or being, whatever. And well, yeah, we all can. It doesn't make anybody better. It doesn't make anybody yeah, better. So they can have the same similar thing as like Ra had. But the thing is like what Ra was told that there are 17 like specialized souls. And I say souls, and when I say souls, everybody else will say crystals. But crystals are souls. And so I think it's important because some people think that we really have real crystals in us and not like the crystalline soul, because our definition of the soul is very deep and vast in most people's mind, and crystal is not. And so when I say soul, it brings up certain kind of understanding. um but there are 17 of these specialized souls that are always incarnated on earth and filter the neutrino stream for whoever they're incarnated in. And it's a part of the vast program that, some people get specific downloads in specific ways to be specific, to play specific roles on the planet. And like Ross said, he was given, in his words, the child's version of human design. And, it's like, it's a lot bigger than this. And even this is so vast, and I just think a lot of us, we want to know more than we need to know at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
but yeah, yeah. So go ahead.
so many things there. So based in, and my mind totally squirrels. So that's the quad
You're
left. But
good. You're
so the
good.
two things I want to say. One is I want to come back to that Gita woman for a second, because you talked about, there's more, there's a few that are here to help deliver a message. And I think in that same thing, she was talking about there was going to be 6 men, and she was the female conduit between the six. And so then I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, too weird for me. And then I so that, but that was part of that same conversation about the solar plexus. The other part is, I keep hearing 4% of 4%. So that's roughly, I forget the number, like 23 million people. Oh, that's my
Mhm.
daughter. And Samantha. Or Sam. So there's like roughly 23 million people. Is that 23 million people that are going to reach a level of consciousness? And like, is like Christ consciousness would be like a collective thing this time, not some dude, X number of years ago. That's right. It's like, no, this is a group team effort. And it's right now, right? And is it roughly that? Because I did the math one night. I just don't remember the number. But I was like, so what is 4% of 4% of the current population? And whatever that,
Yeah.
I almost want to say it was 144 million people or something like that. And, there's a bunch of things that are kind of happening. And, we talk about 2027 and stuff. There is a massive population decline occurring, regardless of what people think, right? It is absolutely like no one's having sex. Nobody even wants to be with each other, and it was already happening in China years ago, where they, were aborting females, right? I mean, there's like something 30 million more men in China than there are women. And
Wow.
that's why they had to create sex robots, because these guys needed to have an outlet, because there's
Wow.
a male body that wants to get rid of energy. So thus the advancement rapidly of
I
sex.
didn't know that.
Oh
That's
man. So, but like, are we collectively speeding up this consciousness and heading to, massive population decline? But it's kind of necessary, because there's a whole lot of people that are doing nothing. Like, their jobs are quite literally doing things that can be replaced by AI, and it's hard to argue for. And I mean, there's just so many things that are going to collapse, right? Legal, and people suing each other because they can use a computer program to target 80 people to sue at once. There will be people that do that, and everyone will like use up their resources in a period of a month trying to stop these fights, and then everyone's just going to give up and go like, what the fuck are we doing? Like this is
Mm.
madness, and it's imminent. It's like so close. Like
Yeah.
I know I could probably go into an online app, and between that and ChatGPT, write some program that would then send emails to people demanding money from them, or else some second thing that I would never do.
Yeah.
Like people are already doing that, but like once everyone learns that they can all do it, and then we all realize we don't even have the time to fight, like, oh shit, here comes another one. Here comes another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I get them
Yeah.
all just from old blog posts. So I have a blog
Mm.
post I wrote. It was right at the time that the ball went into the Cybertruck, right? So like that Elon Musk moment. Remember when he
Okay.
so for whatever reason, I took a screenshot of that and put it in the blog post. I've gotten 3 emails threatening me to take this image down off my blog post, um, and or else.
Wow.
And so,
Dang.
that cost them 2 pennies, right? But I actually got a letter recently in the mail, which means now they paid for postage.
Mm.
And all I have to do is take it down. But I know that the level of intimidation and the level of fear that people just don't, they will immediately react to that and think, oh shit, this is serious. But they've sent 27 cents or whatever to intimidate. But
Yeah.
it feels official because they keep at it, right? And all I have
Mm.
to do is flick that picture gone or do nothing. Like they are not going to invest more money than that because they don't have it, right? It's just a fear tactic. But once everyone
Mm.
realizes everyone can do it, they're all going to do it, and then we're all going to ignore it, and then what do we have?
Yeah. So many different scenarios. One thing that I love the most, probably that one of the main things I love that Ross said about the changing of the cycles is that no matter who you are, no matter what cycle we're going into or leaving out of, if you are correct within yourself and you know how to make a decision, then you should be good. You'll be fine. And the way I looked at it, just from analyzing it just over these years, is like right now, today, there are people living in what we can project to be a 2027 kind of world. Like there are people who live in like an apocalyptic kind of world right now. And that reality. And isn't they're not far from me either. They're probably, down the road. But just to say that, show that everybody can have a different world at the same time, a different kind of experience to different degrees. Of course, there are things that can happen that everybody's going to feel, everybody's going to see or whatnot, but how we filter it out is not written in stone that it's going to be the same for everybody. And so people harp on the destruction, and I understand because nobody wants to be in those positions. I mean, because just like the scene that's been set, it just seems like, man, people didn't just really messed up. Like, what the hell y'all been doing? And now, yeah, man, one of the main things I think is just going to push people over the edge is the fact they're going to realize they've been lied to about so many different things that they gave energy to, things that they did certain things that they regret based off of a lie that they were told. And I think that kind of stuff is what's going to really boil people. And I feel like for me, thankfully, I've been learning about that kind of stuff for like 20 years. So I'm pretty good, I can take it now. But some people are just now, and some people won't ever, start, they'll start real super late getting into it, and they might not have the support around them, because you can have a learning curve and you can get in late and just really, you know, hit the ground running, or you can have a whole bunch of not self confused people around you, and that's going to be real difficult to navigate through.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I have too many scenarios in my head about how it can play out, and I think a lot of them will be right. Not like from just my guesses are right, but just that it's going to be a number of things taking place, and a lot of people are probably going to be right. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not looking forward to witnessing a lot of people die. That's for sure.
Or like supper, where even if in
Yeah,
right, like losing your job is, to a lot of people, it is their identity. So their self-esteem is going to plummet. They're going to hit depression to new levels, and they're going to wonder what's next, and they've not been paying attention. And I go down the street, and that's 95% of the people I'm meeting. I'm like, how's that even a job right now? Like I'm a
yeah,
really skilled IT guy, and I'm out of a job unless I
yeah.
force myself to do something that I know is not making an impact. So
Right,
like
right.
those that are like literally laminating pieces of paper, or signing permits after making people go through 20 hoops to justify their job. Like I in my municipal government here, just to even try to get the capacity for our studio rate changed from 30 people to, like, say, 60. Um, I've been told it would take months. I need architectural plans, all this stuff to prove that this location that's 5 years old and built to modern standards and has all the proper exits and fire suppression and all the things that they made me put in. um, I have to go through so many hoops that I just go there, and I'm infuriated that, like, these people are
Mm,
so inept. And yet across the street, there's a place that should be condemned that is
mm,
half the size of our place, that has a max capacity of 140 people. And so because
mm.
they were grandfathered in, so I have a brand new place. They have wires hanging on the wall. There's chicken fat on the ground, and people are doing yoga there. And it's just ridiculous. And yet my
Wow.
clean place. But it's just like, once everyone realizes that's happening all over the place and no one's accomplishing anything, that's just when lights are off. Like,
Yeah, it's the contracts for one, man. Contracts. It reminds me of 90 this 92nd degree Mason. Yeah, I know. They
can
only
they
go
go
to
that high?
30.
Oh, I thought 33
Yeah,
was the
I
highest.
know,
Okay.
I know.
52nd. Okay.
He's the only guy who's ever claimed to be that high, and he claimed to be that high because he was one of the two guys who broke the math interface to language. And so by breaking the math interface to language, he said that he was able to basically extract basically if you don't use this mathematical interface to language and we write normally, then we're missing like 2/3 of the words that would be necessary to really comprehend what's actually taking place. And so he said he had this 5 foot or just crazy one of the original P. Manley Hall books, and he said they call it syntaxing. And so you syntax it, and you can either and you identify the errors in the grammar, and you can input the correct values so that you can really, supposedly comprehend what's actually there. And so he said he did that to the whole 1,000-page book, and he has gained, so much knowledge. The dude died about, I don't know, 10 years ago, also, just to say. But this math interface to language is, I think, the epitome of the cross of planning. Because for me, the cross of planning, now I say it's the epitome, but I just mean it's an aspect and a very great aspect of the cross, because this cross is about contracts, with the 40 and 37, and we got it's marriage and any kind of contract. We're talking about treaties, trusts, constitutions, all that stuff has basically went crazy after this cycle started, and we have these global unions and these agencies working together, all tied together through contracts that weren't in existence before then. We had some, like national, like global alliances and whatnot, but most things were very separate. And so now they've been unified. And so what they did was brought forth a technology that enabled us as humans to be able to communicate in a way that is as accurate as math, because nobody ever went to war over the accuracy of a math problem. They don't argue over it because what is what. And so they felt if you marry both of them, then you can articulate things in ways and people won't be going to war, they won't be having disagreements, and so on and so forth. And that goes and it trickles on down and goes up into all facets of how we do business. Like, are you trying to get that place, having they saying you need to prove this and prove that and prove this, but who are they to say you need to prove this, that, and the other?
They don't have to hold it.
Yeah,
Right.
what credentials do they have? And
Yeah.
most of these people claiming to be authority figures have illegitimate credentials, and we just assume that their credentials are up to par and assume that they should have this authority when really they shouldn't. And that's a big part of what's happening across the globe, is that a lot of people are questioning the authority, and they're realizing that, hey, you don't really have that authority over me.
Mhm.
But sadly, most people don't know how to make a decision for themselves. And so that's going to play out how it's going to play out. So I think a lot of us need to start, or we will eventually start grouping up into smaller little separate communities so that we can function on these other, using these other systems and this other knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be inevitable.
You made me think of two things just with that last statement. One was, and some of this stuff goes back to Osho, and I don't know if you know some of the connections with Osho and Ra and like the early people in design, but there's definitely connections there, big time. But Osho wanted to build this community, and he said he was like 100 years ahead of time, right? And so this ashram, and where everyone grouped together, and one day the person would use a hammer, and the next day they were driving a tractor. Like everyone just did whatever needed to be done, and it was this
Mm-hmm.
alien. Like, have you seen that Wild Wild Country documentary?
Yeah. I think,
Right?
wait, Wild Wild Country?
Isn't that what's called Wild Wild Country? Yeah, where they
I
all.
think,
Oh, okay. What was the story of? You're familiar with Osho, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So
Osho documentary. Yeah, I think I
yeah,
did.
right. Well, that at the time he was building the community of the future, and where everyone just helped. It got all weird. They did it in Oregon, in a town where there was 80 rednecks that thought they were aliens. The whole thing just it got out of control.
Yeah.
But that, where was I going with that? But we saw a glimpse of it. And then the other thing that I've experienced recently is I stayed one night. I need to get out of the house, and I decided to stay in the Inner Harbor in Victoria. And there's a whole little houseboat district, so it's like 3 docks and probably 30 houseboats.
Hmm.
I After talking to the woman that owned the place, I was just so amazed. Like, it was so cool. They have so little space on these houseboats, right? There's no basement because
Hmm.
and then there's just the stuff of it's kind of a boat, and so they're but the real estate's weird. Everything about it's weird. So it is like living in an RV where you've got just tiny little drawers. And so, but she still was like cooking with a wok and had all these different things, and
Hmm.
out that people networked in the houseboat community, and people knew who had a wok, who had
Hmm.
a chainsaw. And so,
Hmm.
like, you didn't need to have 26 houseboats with woks in them and the storage for it. You just were like, tonight I'm gonna, unless you use a wok every night, you probably don't need it, right?
Yeah.
You don't need being in that. And so I think you're right. I think these little things are happening again. And until others observe it and go like, oh, that seems like a good idea, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think, I think without it being organized properly, without them being aware enough of themselves and the diversity of people, it's just going to be very difficult. We'll be doing the same shit we've been doing, you know. But now I think we have the specialized information to know, like, okay, and to where we can really put people where they're supposed to be, and they're less likely to be rebelling, and we can give key knowledge, to help people as well. Yeah, I just think with this information, we can do it efficiently. Plus, like I was just saying, with that ability to communicate in our contracts to be very clear, because another thing with the contracts is like most of the world is full of generators. We're supposed to know ourselves. And Ross said generators need to give their terms when they enter into agreements with people. If somebody asks us to do something, we need to know what we need in return, as far as like valuing our energy and, yeah, getting that satisfaction. But the thing is that most generators don't know themselves, and they just enter into a contract that has terms already given to them. And that's a recipe for frustration, like off top. And that starts so young, and it plagues the generator from cradle to grave, is that we don't know how to write a contract. We don't know how to enter into a contract. And if the terms are incorrect, you're less likely to get satisfaction and fulfill the contract. And, it's just a real subtle yet influential part of life that I think is really like a big deal now. During this cross of planning, we got so many people, so many worker bee generators who are just slaves only because they didn't know how to give the damn terms. They accepted the damn job. They're fueling the companies and corporations and nations that are killing them, and bitching the whole way about it. Because most of us were just entered into a contract at birth. We didn't have no say so in it.
So interesting that you say the terms thing. I hadn't heard that before, but it just clicked for me in so many ways. Like I'm a very busy Manny Gen quad left. I'm all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
A number of things I've entered, and only when I've paused, made sure I actually really wanted to do it, and set my expectations up front. If I go in loose or wanting to be appreciated by the other party, big old open heart, like
Mm-hmm.
it's deadly dangerous. And so,
Yeah.
but I never associated I need to state my terms as a generator. Like I've not even considered that before. And that just
Yeah.
like ticked, like it was like, fuck, those are the times where I was just like, I'm not gonna like
Mm-hmm.
that is a 3-5. I'd learn. And so the next time,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, that just clicked for me. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, it's very invasive, I guess you could say, just on, yeah, we sign documents and contracts, go to work, for, our bank, just they just contracts everywhere, and they all have terms. And those terms are what regulate a lot of our decisions. And, I think a part of being free and being ourselves in this day and age is about having the correct contracts and the correct terms on those contracts, or else you're not going to be able to do what you want to do,
Mm.
or do what's correct for you.
That's so interesting. And my brain just goes all over the place with that.
You're
But like
good.
I recall like Madonna was really into the Kabbalah. And so obviously elements of that synthesis there. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember now that she famously had a contract with her husband at the time, Guy Ritchie, on how often and what days they would have sex. And all of a sudden I'm like, I wonder if she's a generator and figured that out. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna marry you, and I'm only gonna let you have access to my money if I with these terms. And I thought, like, I remember thinking that was so weird and
Right.
how unloving that would be towards your partner. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I fucking get that. Like, that's awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's just enlightened selfishness, it's about
Right.
differentiation. And that's what I'm saying. Like it depends on how well the generator knows themselves. How
Mhm.
self-aware is that generator to know how to give terms? And like with all this kind of stuff that we didn't know, it's kind of like I can see why Uncle Sam and these powers that be assumed the role that they are playing, because a lot of us were just dumb, deaf, and blind, to the truth. And we kind of needed that, even though we could have used the truth, but since we didn't have it, we kind of needed somebody to help us because, like you said, 95% of people out in the world, they they don't be knowing some essential things. And it's not like they have to know human design, but it would be cool. You don't need to know human design to know that your auric field is a real thing. and that it actually impacts the other person next to you and vice versa. Like those are just life science kind of things. Like it's not about human design the system. But yeah,
So, uh, right there, I wonder if we're gonna see people's auras soon.
oh yeah,
Like, effectively, if there was a way to show someone's energy or aura, that would solve a lot of problems. Because it'd be like, man, you're looking pretty sludgy there, and like display in a Zoom call and be like,
yeah.
because you're like 100%
I
agree
mean,
now.
there
After
are signs though. You know, there are like I think it's a CIA guys just seen on YouTube, and they deal with body language, and like body language is like the cousin to telepathy, because if you can see the facial movements of a person, the body language, you know, you can see the wrinkles in different places in their body, you can deduct certain things, you know, from that. And I feel like that is a way of reading our aura. But you know, it takes training. It takes Our mind has to be trained to understand what we're seeing, just like our mind has to be trained to understand what we're feeling internally. We don't just automatically have definitions for those things, you know. Um, and also, we haven't been raised in families that have been correct for generations, or even we didn't even start, you know, correct ourselves. So we really don't know the full potential of, you know, our senses. And that's like with the rave children, they're supposed to be able to tap into those new tones, the fourth, fifth, and sixth tones. And so they're going to have a whole nother um, depth of senses or sensory perception and whatnot. But yeah, a lot of us, we're not at our pinnacle, I would say. I mean, it's okay, but just given the, you know, if we know how we're designed and how conditioning works, you know, I can be like, oh, I can make a perfect human, you know, with these conditions, so to speak. But none of us knows what that is or have experienced it.
hmm. Okay, I want to talk about plants and plant medicine and seeing people's. There's so many things there. For one, I've realized through lots of digging, like you've heard the term doppelganger, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and depending on what you read about it, like some people think if I seen read that like if you see your own doppelganger 3 times, you'll die, and just absurd. But especially when because I was like, oh, that sounds shitty. I don't want to see my doppelganger. And so then I was like,
Right.
what is a doppelganger? And it turns out that a doppelganger, and I forget the number. I want to say 100. I think we either have 77,000 doppelgangers or
Whoa.
144,000. Like it's a really big number. And the
Huh.
reason for that is that there's 23 points on our face that we look at. And all it takes is you wearing like that, what would you call that? What is that on your head? Like a
Oh, just a head wrap, you
head wrap.
know?
So,
Yeah.
if you were wearing a baseball cap and didn't have the beard, there'd be enough factors that someone, would still think you were someone else, like that they totally recognize. And so, and
Mm.
then of those 23, a bunch are around the eyes. So I started experimenting with wearing sunglasses because, and I now know that as a quad left, my eyes, at least before, I feel like I've relaxed them through yoga nidra, but they were intense. I had an intensity, a projected intensity that would make people uncomfortable, and they were very
Mm.
like I was always hunt my eyes on video. I'd always be hunting around, and you could play back videos from me 2 years ago, and I can see the difference. It's just strange. I was learning to relax.
Mm.
I also learned through that exercise that people were nicer to me when I wore sunglasses. So I'd be walking down the street and I would experiment this. I'd put on and the reason why is that people can tell a sincere smile out of the corners of your eyes. We somehow
Mm.
instinctively know this. So I'd be walking down the street and if I like a smile, but it's me forcing a smile, like I'm not necessarily in a good mood, and I'm walking, anyone coming towards me, whether it's a car or a person, just deadpanned, didn't see me, I didn't exist. But if I had that same uh, non-real smile wearing sunglasses, as they walked towards me, they were beaming. like, and sometimes
Yeah.
waving, and I'd be like, I'm just doing this, wearing
Yeah.
sunglasses. And it's like
Yeah.
something like they couldn't tell if the smile was sincere. And so it was almost like they didn't want to take the risk of not smiling back because this person was
Mm,
making the effort, you
right.
know?
Right. Hold on a
So
second.
yeah, like when I hear people seeing auras, I always pictured like they see colors, and it sounds like sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah.
I realized I'm getting hyper in tune with being able to read people, like basically based on their eye movements and all this stuff, because I've just been so curious about it. And mostly, I think I was doing it because I was just like, why does nobody like me? So it's like, like trying to like reverse engineer it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's become tactical, but it's made my life a whole lot easier. People are just generally, and I feel like it's that fifth line thing. Like it's people just sort
Yeah.
of got my shit together, and I don't need help, and I don't need someone to listen, and so like I just never got that my whole life. And now
Hmm.
I throw on a set of sunglasses and tell people I'm having a hard day, and just
Yeah.
watch the dial turn. Like so weird, man.
Yeah, it is. I started doing that too when the projector, fifth line 501 projector told me that's what she does. She puts on her shades and the whole scene changes. Now I never wore shades really because I always lose them, and I like to take the sun into my eyes. I don't like to shade them. Um, but yeah, I found that too lately. I like to just go out because yeah, it's just I don't want to say a protection, but your protection against projections, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
the person can't get enough of a read on me to
yeah.
validate their assumptions of my present.
That's funny.
So I've gotten all kinds of sunglasses now. So I bought, and I'm not a fan of Facebook and Meta and all that, but Ray-Ban and Meta created a pair of sunglasses that have cameras in it and speakers in the things.
Ah, okay.
Because I'm like way acoustically ADHD, I can go for a walk, play music. No one can tell because it's not in my ears because it's kind of like jawbone technology. So I
Hmm.
get to relax. So then I'm more chill, and then people approach, right? Like it's so strange because otherwise, I got gate 57. My right ear is like always looking for danger, or was, and hyper attuned to it. Just like could lock in on four conversations at once somehow, and it was just so
Hmm.
distracting to me that I need to like be like I gotta tune that shit out. So
Yeah.
between those sunglasses, they've been a godsend, and also I just take the coolest photos and videos because it's my eyes,
Mm.
like what I'm looking
Right.
at, is the
Right.
photo. So it's awesome. But
Nice.
I also got these chromatic sunglasses. So I've got 10 different colored pairs of what look like Ray-Ban sunglasses, and they're for different chakras.
Oh,
So
okay.
you go outside with these things on, and like 5 minutes of wearing the green one, you just feel love. Or, the rose colored glasses,
Hmm.
quite literally, the anxiety just drops. And
Yeah.
as soon as I got them, I was reminded of a phrase, which is like, if you wear rose-colored glasses, all red flags just look like normal flags. It's so
Yeah.
true. When I look through that pink color, that's what goes on. You just can't drive in them because you can't see people's rear headlights, so you can't tell
Right.
them to stop. So it's good for a walk. But
Yeah.
so I found myself drawn to sunglasses, but I think and I don't wear them enough. I've actually like always thought like, I wonder if Bono has got a five and he figured it out because he just like Bono wears
Mm.
glasses indoors and out, right?
Mm.
So he's been asked on a shock show and he said he has glaucoma and stuff. But is that his excuse? So people go, Bono. Whereas instead he's like,
Right.
"Oh, I know shit's way easier when I wear sunglasses inside. No, fucking Bono, so I'm gonna do it inside, right?
Yeah.
So,
Gotta have these hacks, man. Personal hacks.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
people
like
figured
color therapy. Um, that's why, like, if we were to be able to see auras, it would be a big deal. You know, it would be probably tough to function normally,
Mhm.
and probably that's why we're desensitized a bit because if we were more in touch with our senses, there would be things that we wouldn't do that we are currently doing, and things that we would start doing things that we don't do now, and
Mhm.
that's why we don't see the way birds see and other animals see because the seeing definitely plays a big role, at least in our species. But supposedly, the next species is not going to be so much of a big deal.
Yeah, last part again.
The next species,
Yeah.
the raised
Yeah.
sight isn't going to be,
Mm,
big
yeah.
deal.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I feel as I get more connected to spirit, and it's because of all the things I'm doing. I'm doing like I'm resting, I'm taking care of my body. Like there's this energetic connection that's amplifying big time. Oh fuck, I forgot where I was going with that. Also because I wanted to thank you for that design of plants document that you created. Because it's like I was already exploring that area, and Richard Beaumont had done a bunch of videos, and I was just fascinated by it. But I think what drew me to it was like, oh dang, I've got three of the four receptive gates to those gates. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's amplify that shit. And so I really dug deep into cannabis in the last year and a half, like to amazing effect. But like I don't smoke it, and thankfully never did, because I think I wouldn't be here today. Like I would have been addicted to it when I was in my 20s. So I skipped a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
I ended up just going straight to like full spectrum edibles. And now I'm like, um, I've figured out like my stack, which is it's not even a full spectrum edible. It depends on what I need. So I CBD for lubricating the body and feeling clean, and allows me to push my body every day a little bit more. So I'm getting younger and younger. And then sativa over indica. My mind had thought, because I was just so busy and I wanted to quiet my mind. And my first edibles were indica. I was like, oh, this is awesome, but like I'm in the couch, right? Like I'm just so
Right.
tired. And so,
Hmm.
but I was like, well, I don't want sativa. That's apparently, gives you more energy. And I was like, the last thing I fucking need is more of that.
Yeah.
It turns out then all it took was reading deeper, and being like, all sorts of people are having positive effects, particularly those with ADHD with sativa. And it's something to do with, so then I started getting hyper focused on that. But then I discovered CBG, which is the sort of euphoric part of the plant. And then one day I got started exploring CBC, and just like it's like amazing. And now I've discovered THCV, and I've been like playing with it. So like depending on what I need and where I need it, this is my minerals, but it's strategic. It's not just I want to be high. It's
Yeah.
like, oh man, my body's in pain. I need to push it. I'm going to take some CBD,
Hmm.
either topically or typically internally. If I'm genuine, well, so I got to tell you, CBC. Someone had said to me, if you can get your hands on CBC, it's like CBD is like a traffic direction person. You go to a construction zone, they got the stop sign. It basically directs the medicine to where it needs to go most in your body and works over time. CBC is like the Advil for wherever the pain is. It knows to go there. And so I one day I was playing pickleball, which I play a lot of, and it was like 7 in the morning playing pickleball, and I'm playing really well, and I decided to dive in the air to get something, which I never do. I'm 52. Decided I'd try it. Landed on my hip. I could barely walk, like literally, like really bruised and everything. So I left pickleball early, went home, had a nap. Of course, woke up even stiffer. But I had this CBC and THC stuff, these gummies that I bought and I hadn't tried yet. And I was like I said, CBC really like works, like for acute pain. So I had some CBD, which by the way always amplifies THC. So you always got to watch that. It comes back. uh,
Hmm.
but with the CBC, within an hour of taking it, I was playing pickleball like in the evening, the best pickleball of my life. Like I was like next level Spider-Man tactile.
Yeah.
But because there was THC in it, I was like had a memory of a goldfish. But for whatever reason, all of a sudden I didn't have a problem saying to all these people that were in their 60s, 50s and 60s, and would generally judge me for saying I'm high. I was just like, I'm on some CBC because I wanted to get through the pain, but my memory's a goldfish, and they would just laugh because I didn't say I was high. I said
Yeah.
I'm on this cannabinoid thing, and the net effect was high, and all of a sudden it was the best night ever. I was playing the best pickleball of my life. The next day the hip hurt again, but for those
Hmm.
2 hours I didn't feel a thing. but
Mm.
yet I was highly, highly functional, but definitely
Yeah.
high. The goldfish brain was full on. I'd be like, did we win? Oh, she's like, no, we're 2 points in. I just had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
plants are amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I used to be super vegetarian for a good while. Not anymore. Just now see them as just learning more about plants. You know, you get to see the multitude of uses, and yeah, I'm I haven't experimented as much as I would like, or pretty much any with growing food, um, or plants using the technology. You know, using the plants by the design matrix. I planted some, but I didn't. You know, they weren't edible or whatnot. But I'm still curious as to how all that works, um, as far as
Mhm.
how does it integrate into our bodies, and how do we feel? Because the big like right now I'm taking a parasite cleanse, so I'm looking to um, yeah, rid myself of unnecessary uh, uh, invaders, so to speak. And plants apparently are really good at cleaning things. um, but I wonder if just having like a field of certain plants that are good for getting rid of parasites, if just making physical contact with them, if that is enough, or do we still is it still necessary for us to ingest those kind? There's so much experiments I would like to have when it comes to that department. Just
Mhm.
haven't had it yet.
Yeah, I don't have the resources. If I had the funds, I would absolutely be growing various plants, recording their birth time, and then playing with those energies. Because for sure, I have been on like Zoom calls where someone completes a channel for me, and I could just feel it come online, And so, like, I have energetic work sessions with. Are you going to the Santa Fe thing? You are going, right?
Yes, the plan. It's a chance that I won't be able to. I have to talk to Jonah just because my girl just started working at a weed farm. So I'm wondering if she's gonna have access to some CBC now.
Well, yeah, and I don't know what it's like your laws there, but here, every store, it's just legal here in BC. So
Oh
it's
yes, medicinal here.
yeah, okay. So yeah, you probably could find some, maybe.
Is it
But
like
I
a?
can just go in and buy it off the shelf. So
Is it like a? What form does it come in? Is it like a wax
every time I've gotten it so far, it's been a gummy, and it
gummy?
always they weren't
Okay.
able to extract the THC out of it because I would love to have the pain relief without being high, especially I'm trying to be
Yeah.
productive, right?
Right.
But there are times where I would just like I'm still productive. I just don't remember. So I set lots of clock reminders, right?
Right.
So that's been my tactic is, every hour knowing, what's coming because I can really lose myself into flow with that. Um,
Yeah.
oh man. A
Plants.
question for you though about no, it's gone. But yeah,
So
it's fascinating, man. Like I know what I want to say. Like if we could get the design date of a plant and you wanted to get the corresponding like light up a channel. I've been digging into like some of I don't know where I saw it, read it, but the idea that like we shouldn't even be smoking the cannabis plant or breaking it up. That all we need to do is rub it on our gums. And that's what the indigenous would do is just take a leaf off and you don't because like we're already extracting so much out by smoking it and various things that it's already less pure form. So like if you wanted to like light up a channel, grow a plant, figure out when it was born, and then
mhm,
all you do is take a leaf off, rub it on your gums. You're not going to get high from it because it's the
yeah.
process, all the stuff that makes you high.
Mhm.
Like how simple that would be. So, you know,
Right.
that's there. Like if you say your daughter's on a farm there, I'd be like
Not my girlfriend.
your girlfriend.
But she has to wear gloves and fully, covered and everything. So there's no physical contact except
But like,
with
if you put it mounted an iPhone above it, I mean, I wonder, like, do they know how long roughly it takes by the time you seed it? Like, if it's 6 weeks, 2 days less, those 6 weeks, you mount an iPhone with a video going, and you just extract, eventually you got the time, right? That would be the
Hmm.
sure way. And then
Yeah.
experiment with that. Like there's a Christmas tree farm up the street here. I like, you want to make Christmas special? Have a tree that you vibes with your family, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah, you can have, yeah, because it'll be a heal. It could be a healing tree or a spiritual tree. Just depending on what gates are activated. Yeah,
well,
totally.
that's why I was asking about Santa Fe, because my friend now is going to be there, and she has the bottom three channels of the penta, and I have the top three plus one of the bottom. So basically, the two of us are effectively a penta together, even though energetically Ross said it's three.
Hmm.
We sit on Zoom calls, and all we do is talk for 10 minutes, catch up, and then she's just on the other end. We're both on mute, but we're just maintaining an energetic connection. And I'm way more productive when I just know she's there. Plus, it's kind of handy.
Hmm.
Like we already vibe so well because of that. Like we just light up all this stuff that I just need to ask her a quick question, and like the answer's back, and then I'm just back heads down, right? So if I can
Hmm.
borrow her energy through a Zoom call, rubbing a leaf of a plant, if that's all I have to do, it just seems so obvious not to try it. So
Right, right, right. And even if it doesn't work the first time, like it doesn't mean it won't work, later down the line because of the properties of the microbiome. Like sometimes we have to have our body conditioned to a certain degree, whether that's physical or just or internal. Things have to be right for certain things to happen. And yeah, like I said, we were desensitizing because we don't have certain microbiome and our population is a certain way internally. Um, we're susceptible to certain things, and we like probably won't notice certain things. It's yeah, it's a
what about the
strange.
cleanser? Because I'm doing all sorts of stuff lately to kind of clear everything out, and it is making me more intuitive. And even coming back to your point earlier of like, we're entering a strange time, and you're going to need your wits about you. If you have your wits about you, you'll be fine, right? And there's just most people do not, and not even remotely close. And it's taken me 3 years to clean out this much crud, like, and there's more to go.
Yeah.
But I got these pads that you put on the bottom of your feet, so it looks like a little tea bag, and then you put it on the bottom of your foot with a sticker, and you
Hmm.
go to sleep. And my feet are clean when I go to sleep. When I get up in the morning, it is like swamp sludge. It is
Hmm.
nasty. And after 7 days, it's only starting to be less.
Wow.
I guess it's ginger and turmeric and something else.
Yeah.
I think my body's having an energetic exchange. Like it's like, I'll give you my sweat and stuff. Give me this ginger and turmeric through a very, our feet are portals, is what I keep hearing. Am I
Hmm.
like doing a real house cleaning here, right? Pulling barnacles off the ship. So my
Yeah.
experiment right now is to do it for a month and see, and I'm take pictures every day. So far, it's 7 days, and each day it's like, oh, geez, like it's not getting
Wow.
less. It's just the same.
Yeah.
But I just had a
Pretty wild.
UTI, so I was septic, and so I actually think I've just got a lot of crap in me that it's just going to take a while to pull out.
Yeah,
But
it takes a while, man. It's like we have years of accumulated stuff in us, sludge, it gets caked up in our intestines and arteries and stuff. And it takes cell power to, like manpower to get rid of it. It don't just, go away. And if our cells are busy taking care of other problems, they can't, deal with that problem. So I'm taking a woman. Her name's Hilda Clark. Have you heard of her? She created this zapper machine where it zaps. It sends a positive onset wave where it goes like it's not a spike wave or a wavy thing like this. It's just like a bunch of rectangles. That kind of wave. That at a very low frequency, it's set to the frequency of parasites and bacteria. And so when you when you use the machine, it sends an electrical current through your body that zaps the pathogens and the bacteria and kills them.
Mm.
You have to do it in a certain way. You have to do it like a 3-step process, because once you do it the first time, some of the parasites were infected with other parasites. And so when that one parasite dies, it releases the other parasites. And so you have to do it again to kill those parasites. And some of those parasites end up having parasites too. So you have to do it 3 times to get rid of all of those. But the thing is that the electrical currents only run along the outside of our body and our organs and things. And there are parasites or bacteria that are within, not on the outer walls, but they're like within your bowels or within your intestines. And so they don't get killed. And so for them, you have to take certain herbs to, and roots or whatnot to flush those out.
Mm.
So I'm on like a 21-day protocol. This is day 5. And yeah, she has a book she calls like the cure of all diseases. She's done a lot of research in that area.
Mm.
Um,
Hilda Clark, you said?
yeah, Hilda Clark. It's a woman from, I believe, Germany or Russia, something like that.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a pretty cool machine.
it's along the lines of what I've been doing, but like I was introduced to this thing called an NES scan by my friend Tracy, and it turns out she lives down the street. So like even just the people that are in my orbit and the things I get exposed to are cool, right? But
Mm,
so this scan, all you do is you speak into a microphone and you count to 10, and then it tells you what's energetically in your body and tells you that you need to be drinking more water and why, and the level of depth it gives you. And so that was already freaky. It also tells you where you are on your hero's journey. Like it all from
hmm,
counting. And
wow.
I gotta tell you, man, the shit's real, because then I would start working on the various areas, do a scan a week later, and certain areas would be cleaning up. But the other thing I started doing,
Hmm.
you're probably going to think I'm nuts, but maybe not. You're probably familiar with light language and like heard people sort of speak it and or
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
there's a woman on YouTube, and clearly she's had a very traumatic life, and because she talks about what she's experiencing, but at the same time she channels this light language. And so what it always is it starts with automatic writing. So she's obviously done some sort of meditation, written out, and it looks like Sanskrit. And then she then speaks it, and then she writes down the interpretation. So, like, if it's a if her light language is for uh, gallbladder, it'll be like this picture that she drew, her speaking it, which sounds in a foreign tongue, and then the description about it is the most detailed, clear description I've ever heard. Like fifth grade, but like all the details are there. So it's fascinating. And she like produces like 5 of these a day. And she's even made power sets. And so I've created playlists where I'll go to bed and just let it play near my body. And sometimes even at double speed, because I don't think it matters that I'm hearing it. It's my body hearing it. And and
Hmm.
talking to my 4-1 friend Elena, and I've learned that if a 4-1 gasps like, oh, it's like I know that something's true. And so when I was telling her about this, she's like, oh, well, that sounds like Sanskrit, which is like the oldest language, period. And so of course my ears don't know how to listen to it, right? It doesn't know what to do with it, but my body feels it. And so there are other times where I'll just play it, and I'll just place it on my lap, and like I'll be playing a game, watching a movie or whatever, but I can feel it vibrating into my body. And I use it to reverse engineer whatever state I'm in. So if I'm like having gallbladder issues, I put that on. Or one of the first times that I tried it, I'm fairly sure it's true because it was a while ago, but I had chicken pox turns to shingles. I had shingles. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to have shingles for 6 weeks and be on antibiotics. Like, I just was like, nope. And I had this metaphysical book. And so I was reading about shingles and got into the metaphysical tap, like what the root of it was. And it's related to stress and the chickenpox virus and vaccine and all that shit. And then But then I was like, I'm gonna like listen to this light language about chicken pox and around shingles and just let it play a bunch of times. My shingles was gone in 4 days, and I stopped taking the antibiotics on the fifth day. So I was like, I don't want to keep taking this stuff, and it's never returned, right? And so I was like, and that's all I did. It was just like energetically. I think my body was listening to it, heard it, and I was receptive to it, just like Reiki, right? You're not going to feel chi or Reiki from someone unless you're willing to receive it. You know, you're either
Yeah.
open to receiving it or you're not. And I was open. And now I use it all the time. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Okay, I'm gonna go Google light language, find her stuff because I trust her stuff because I also there's some like, I think I listening to someone else's stuff because it's becoming trendy. Is it even a vibrational match for me, right? But like this woman's stuff, like she's the real deal. And
Hmm.
it's almost like an online database of I want to reverse engineer that. And so it got me thinking, you were talking about parasites, like there are some
Yeah.
for astral parasites and Pleiadian energy and like it's the whole gamut, like musical talent. Like it's just so like I go to play the drums and I'd be like, I need a little extra musical talent. So I'm gonna put this on the car as I'm driving to my office just to make sure. And then I'll sit and I'll be
Yeah.
like, damn, I'm good today. What's going on?
Yes, frequency is how I would explain it. Is
Mhm.
everything is frequency, and if we tap into those, hear those right frequencies, yeah. I wonder what's happening internally. Like are the bacteria just having a seizure and dying, or are you empowering your boosting up your white blood cells and they in there murdering like crazy? Who knows? But something's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like there
And that
there
frequency.
is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, there is, our cells are conscious.
Mm.
Those bacteria, they are conscious, and they have like personalities in a way, you know. So, like, yeah, there is a whole life and whole universe inside.
Yeah. I was just thinking more about that NES scan. My parents were not open to it, but they went along with it. So I got my dad to speak into the microphone and I sent him and my mom the report. My mom's a nurse from the 70s, so like unless a doctor said it, there's it's no metaphysical. She's starting to come around a little bit because I did some Reiki on her dog and all of a sudden he was better. So I think I've reached her, but I took that example. But my dad's on all kinds of, he's turned 80, so but he's on like six different drugs at this point, heart high blood pressure, pre-diet no no and he was on a bunch. And but he was just felt so shitty. And this scan, he just counted to 10. It was saying you have a bladder infection. And he was like, nope. But he wasn't aware of it because he was on so many drugs that he didn't know. He didn't know. And he suffered another 4 weeks until the doctor said, wow, you have a bladder infection.
Wow.
And all of a sudden he was getting treated for that. And I'm like, dude, the report said
Oh,
that. And my mom literally said to me, we're not interested in this. And my mom, who
oh, that's
desperately
fascinating.
worried about my dad, wouldn't accept that that could be a possibility. Yet energetically, it picked it up by him counting to 10
Mm.
and weeks before the doctors discovered it because it was masked by all the other drugs. So I just thought my dog.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Shoots.
Here we go. Yeah, dude. Like energy and frequency and vibration, like it's all legit. And some of it, I think, I'm for me, I'm experiencing it through a Zoom call, and then through these, just having this shit vibrate against my leg, So,
Mm.
um, I've even lately been like, I was at a pub a month and a half ago, and it was a jam, so I'd get to go up and play. And this guy next to me, I could just tell he was suffering. And I forget at the time, but I asked him like what he was suffering with. And but I happened to have my metaphysical book there. And so once he told me, I was like, what's the cause of that? Root cause. And then I
Mm.
went onto this lady's site and I started playing all the light language to combat his issue because I was like 6 feet from him, right? But I didn't even tell him. So I was like, basically, like, I wonder if this would work. And I've never seen the guy again, but I just thought, like, wouldn't that be cool? You could just sit next to someone
Right.
and actually like
Yeah,
help them,
exactly.
And they're like, what the fuck is that? noise. It sounds like someone's like chattering like a chipmunk or something, right? But so
Yeah, it's crazy if he gets healed, and if what would he say is the reason, the cause for his health? That would be,
mhm.
yeah.
And at the time, the syndrome, it was now I remember it was something to do with his hand, and he had a stroke, and then his hand was like frozen. And I was thinking, like, okay, nothing's actually cut the blood vessels to that hand. It is a mind connection, right? And so we just accept that, like, when the doctor tells you that's your problem, you go, well, I guess that's my problem now. Like, your words are spells. And
Right.
uh, I'm like, I would have loved to have like been like, just come spend a week with me, and we'll just play this shit for a week and open you up to it. And let's
Yeah,
just see if we could just prove the doctor wrong. But to
that's
get
why we
even consider that,
that's why we need our own communities, man, so we could run our own little tests. Not little tests, but yeah, because there's a lot of almost every test that has been done should be redone, but with this awareness
yeah,
behind it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But we probably only can benefit, just like I said, in our own little separate communities.
Well, yeah. Although I guess the communities, we have access to each other like this now. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's just so much, pulls us away. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just see maybe as this whole. It just seems like people are losing more and more faith in their governments,
mhm.
and yeah, people just gonna end up saying, "Forget y'all, man. Y'all can't protect us. Y'all can't. Y'all don't know no better. Y'all lying. Y'all just people like us, and blah blah blah." And yeah, just real close to people just wanting, trying to self govern.
Yeah.
It's like no other option, really.
Well, the agreements are all expiring, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so. And I think that that's supposed to happen with animals too. And I can't help but think that, like, that's we're going to see that. Like the same we were talking before about, you're in a hospital. It's not a good place to be to heal because you're literally just getting cooked. Well, I forget where I read it, but like basically domestic pets are the only animals that get cancer. And that's because they're
Hmm.
inside, they're not getting enough outside time, right? Imagine a chihuahua living on the 36th floor of a building. That animal is going to be high anxiety. It basically gets to go down the elevator, stand in a 4x4 tree box. If it's even grass anymore, it might be
Yeah.
astroturf, so it can
Right.
discharge its battery and its energy, right? And so these animals that are indoors are the only ones getting cancer, and it's because they're not in nature anymore either. So that agreement with animals, we're kind of fucking it up. And this idea that the animals are just gonna be like, see ya, and run in the streets, like, why wouldn't they? They still have intelligence, can tell like this shouldn't be happening to me, you know?
Yeah, that's so intelligent, man. So
Yeah.
many creatures. I mean, all the creatures, it's like that's a whole part of the cosmology is just taking us out of being human centric. Like it's not human centric. We just think it is because we're playing humans right now, but it's way bigger than us, and we're just just happen to have our little branch of development, which is cool. Something to be grateful for, but it ain't gonna be forever. It hasn't always been forever. And yeah, just the quickest, sooner we can get to that point, I think the better. But not everybody, has to get to that point. We still gonna, the wheel still keeps turning, whether we get it or not.
Yeah,
uh,
I don't know about you, but like the last year, I've been genuinely afraid for humanity based on the 2027 stuff. And I viewed it in this negative light. And lately, like, I'm feeling way more positive about it. But it seems to be almost more like, I feel like I'm helping manifest the negativity by agreeing with it. And so
mm,
it's instead like I have to change my attitude. And I
yeah,
always feel like I show up. as best as I can every day, but I'm always uh, wanting to do more. And I'm witnessing it in the weirdest places, like just going to play with a softball team. And like if I'm not in a good mood, shitty game, everybody's grumpy. When I've gone there and been like, did a little grounding and relaxation beforehand, and I show up with a smile on my face, I've literally witnessed or recognized that the whole vibe changes. Like it's infectious, right? And so
Yeah.
it's actually very simple, because then I get reflected back to me what I'm putting out there. And so I could go into that situation and think, oh, I'm special and I have the power to do this. But no, we all of us do. What if we just all did that, right? Like I'm doing, like if it's
Hmm.
9 of us there, it just took one of us to kind of change the vibe, because I just was trying to be as raw and real as possible. And most
Yeah.
of us are not capable of doing that right now. So yeah.
Yeah, it does matter, I feel. Um, yeah, our vibe and how we see it. Like for me, I feel positive or not positive. Well, I feel optimistic about myself and how I'm gonna, go through it. I I feel more pessimistic about most people, and yeah, that's just my limitation and my scope. Because I have been a part of that thinking where people thought like, and this is like early 2000s, where people thought like things were going to change. Everybody was just going to all of a sudden be enlightened or, awakened, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like life works like that. It would be awesome. We're going to infect a good amount of people and we can be thankful for that.
Mm,
But I don't know about, the most, because if I just look at things with just an honest, unbiased perspective, it just, I don't get to that fearful state, but I get to like, dang,
yeah.
sheesh, kind of perspective. But and we can still have that and still vibe high, still laugh and tell you jokes and whatnot. But looking at somebody suffer, like they're suffering.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
Well, how long have you been in the experiment? Like, because I agree with you 100%. I'm 3.5 years in, and the amount of toll my body has taken by my mind consciously wanting to improve in the body, having to like keep pace with it.
Hmm.
There's like, I couldn't imagine someone trying to squeeze that into 6 weeks. Like the closer we get, like it's just like they
Yeah.
self-destruct, right? They just turn into a pool of jello. So like you've been doing this much longer, like a lot more, I presume, like balanced, right? And so you've reached just such a chill zen, like you can want the best for everybody, but there's a practicality of you're also just gonna see a lot of suffering, right? And then I guess,
It's a possibility, man. I know it's not for sure. What's for sure is how the wheel will move. That's written, that's in stone, that's how the cosmic, you know, clock moves. But how we play it out, how we filter it, that's still up to be seen.
mhm,
I don't know. I'm open to the miracle. Neutrinos exist, and we can use their agency to change a lot of stuff.
mhm,
But will we? I don't know.
mhm.
But yeah, I've been experimenting since 2007. That's when I found out about my strategy and authority.
Well, and everyone has their sort of like where it found them story, and I've heard everything from, well, one was like, I'm trying to think who it was. It was Kathy Bachanko, but I could have that wrong. But she said like she was asking the universe for answers, and like a Chaitan book fell out of out of a shelf on the floor in front of her.
Oh
Like,
wow,
boom, there it
that's
is.
cool.
It might have been Kathy. I can't remember who said that. But like that, or others have been an ayahuasca experience. Mine was, having never smoked a cigarette, never, I tried a joint once and I didn't inhaled wrong. And so, but then I went to a weekend where I did clinical grade MDMA on the Friday, 7 grams of mushrooms on the Saturday, tribal dance shit on the Sunday, and like meditation.
Wow.
But the woman there had Chaitan's book, was like, "Ah, I'm looking into this human design thing. Let me ask you a question." And she said, if someone told you that the pot on the stove was hot, would you believe them or would you need to touch it? And I was like, I would need to touch it. Like it was just like, whoa, like it was, and that was just such a weird response through that whole weekend that I just know that was the moment that there was like a hook. And I spent 6 months thinking I was reading, learning, leaning into Scientology, and like it just really was like avoiding it at all costs, but still curious.
Yeah.
And then something went, but like, so do you remember the moment? Like or and or like different there's different points where it just grabbed me again, where it went deeper. Or like, Leanne Wolf would say, like it would hit you at a cellular level. You'd be like,
Mm.
oh, that's in my and I'm still rambling, but and then again, because you've been doing this much longer, but like it was probably 3 months ago, I was saying to my friend Nathan, like, I just want out. I want to get off the ride, right? Just like, get me off. I'm done. And now I'm glad again that I'm in. So does that just keep happening where you like let me off and then you get back on, or
For me, when I bumped into it, it was more like, I don't know, I just knew that it was something I needed to put a lot of or give my attention to, simply because it had answered the question about the gut feeling. Because I had an incident in the past when I was driving down a wet road, and my sacral basically like helped me evade a car, unconsciously. I had to evade the car, and my body moved the steering wheel in a way that I didn't consciously, direct it to do so. And I avoided it with, it was just beautiful. And from that moment on, I was like, what the hell is that? So I just started trying to study and find anything I could about it, but nothing ever satisfied me. And then when I come into human design, it clearly explained, the sacral and the whole authority thing and respond and blah blah blah. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I've been looking for. And so I don't think uh, more so lately have I gotten to the point where I'm like, I want to get out of like human design business, but I don't believe I've gotten to a point where I wanted to get out of the knowledge.
you never had like a stop the rider when I get off moment? Because yeah, maybe yours was more gradual. Maybe because I throw so much stuff at myself that I'll have 80 experiments at once. So I think I just create mass confusion. I'm
Yeah, and you're
feeling all over the place. But
yeah, and
yeah.
you're into it at a time when it's just coming from all angles too. You're hearing it from all different kinds of people. When I got into it, it wasn't that many voices. It was not an online presence like this, and it was just, you are doing it by yourself, basically studying by yourself, kind of
Mhm.
thing. That's what I was doing.
Mhm. Yeah, that very true. I mean, the first year there wasn't many apps, and there was certain things that I just had a nose for that didn't exist in the apps, and so I ended up kind of doing almost like line one research on some things, but it was enough that. But then it just appeared in apps later, which was like, oh, that actually validated that I knew how to dig.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it was probably when I got downloaded, I got a lot of information that really just, sold me, because I didn't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, I did spend a lot of time absorbing the free information, but I think pretty early in my process, my buddy gave me a whole bunch of, source materials. So I just had a lot to go through, and yeah, I didn't have much distractions, I think. I mean, besides just life and bills and, stuff like that.
So, and it's interesting to hear you say that a sacral response made you turn the steering wheel, because I always sort of understood that to be more of a splenic, like a
It was
physical.
the it was just I felt it viscerally in that region of my body. And
Mm.
so that's why I took it to be, something, from the sacral.
Like it was
But
definitely your body, at least. It wasn't your mind saying turn. It was like, dude,
right,
trouble, get
right.
the.
I was talking to the people like, don't come out here. And then my body just moved, just turned the wheel. And I've had like one other instance, which could have been my spleen, but like I was about to leave the beach in Hawaii and I was like saying something to people and I was turning around and some kind of way my eyes saw a branch in the back of my head, like because I don't have eyes back there, but I saw back there and I was able to like duck down as I was turning around. And as I was doing it, people was like, "Hey," because they seen what was happening. And then when I moved, they was like, "How did you do that? Oh my god!" Because it was imminent. Just knew I was gonna hit that branch. But I yeah intuitively saw it, and I moved. And but I'm undefined splenically, and so like those kind of things in my other studies in the glands, endocrinology, I feel like allows me to see like, yeah, you can be undefined whatever, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't function and that it doesn't operate and that you can't utilize it at a correct moment. Like I didn't have to check with my emotional center and see if I was clear, to move or nothing. Cause it wasn't even a solar plexus type of job. That's a splenic job, also a sacral job, because they all work in conjunction. And that's the
Mhm.
thing, we're a directorate, a unified body of organs, and we they like they work in unison. The spleen can't do what the head does, and the ego can't do what the root does. They just got to take turns and giving their input, as much input as is necessary at any given moment.
Mhm.
And by input I mean hormones, chemistry.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wonder if you would like that the newest book that I wrote called Sacred Satisfaction.
Okay.
Uh, I go into um, the biology basically of a generator of the sacral and why the gut feeling does what it does, and yeah, it's pretty. At least for me, like I love to highlight that angle of it as far as like the biological, physiological counterparts, because a
Mhm.
lot of people don't talk about that. They don't know that the actual hormones that we get from these glands or organs help us to create these behavioral traits that we identify through the gates and the sensors and the lines and stuff.
Mhm.
And so like it's yeah, very biological system, just kind of take it out of the energetic side of it. I like to highlight that side. But anyway, I think the book is ultimately like to see if I can help awaken generators, because a lot of generators like to know, why should I trust my gut? What's what gives this gut, the role, the authority, or the know-how to be able to dictate my life.
Mhm.
And if we can find out, like, okay, your lungs, help you breathe. People give their authority to the lungs when it comes to breathing. They do it because that's what it does. Now, if we can learn physiologically what our gut and other internal organs do, we can just surrender and let that take place too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up glands because I've kind of think I've heard this about the quad left. Like I just get the information when it's time. It's always been like I get it the day before I need it. So like
Mm.
I just glands came up yesterday, the day before, and I already half forget what it was telling me, but I remember going, pay attention to glands. Like the next time it comes up, pay attention. So yeah, I want to see that document.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's like when I was in IT and technology, especially early on, I found out how quick a study I was, and yet I didn't feel like I was good at studying. But I was just
Mm.
always intuitively the night before I'd go to a client site, I would be learning about what ended up getting talked about that day. And
Hmm.
so they're always amazed at my depth of knowledge. But it was like
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, I read that last night. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like all the time. This repeating thing
Yeah.
some point I lost all that, like lost confidence or whatever. But like lately, it's come back. But now, because I feel plugged into myself and switched on, and I'm aware, and I've got the demonstrated experience, like it's like
Yeah.
I'm that. So
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting more and more aware of your body, every moment you start paying attention to everything. And so you notice a lot more.
yeah, I actually yesterday I got I get UTIs a lot, and I've got a fissure in my body, so it's like if I get stressed, it can lead to a urinary tract infection in
Hmm.
days.
Hmm.
And I've for the most part learned how to kill it within 2 hours by digging out my metaphysical book, reading about the bladder and how I'm pissed off and I'm holding my pee because it's from a childhood trauma of
Hmm.
this is how I'll get attention. And like, so it's like, if I get ahead of it, I don't need to
Hmm.
be sick and have antibiotics.
Makes sense.
And I was telling you that for a reason.
Probably the glands, maybe was
What was
that was the last thing we talked about, and being ahead, night ahead of.
oh, yeah. So this happened yesterday. All of a sudden I was getting a UTI yesterday morning. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm running through the scenarios. Is there, and it's almost always a female authority figure is making me feel like I've got limitations. But there was nothing. It wasn't mom, it wasn't my wife, it wasn't like this lady I saw. Like there was nothing. And then I get a text from someone like 20 minutes later, and the triggering experience appears. So it like literally happened. My body was pre having the moment. And that was like some pre cognition stuff. And I pinged
Yeah,
Eleanor.
because we can sense things, and
Sorry, I lost your video. You're kind of frozen or something. You still there? Oh,
oops, hold on, here I come. You there?
yeah.
Can you hear me?
It froze for 10, 20 seconds there, but
Okay.
what were you gonna say?
I had to check a, I had to check a message. My girl had just messaged me. I think
Oh,
dinner's getting ready or something. But yeah, I was saying that our bodies can sense things, far beyond our conscious awareness. So your body was picking up on what was actually
well,
headed
God,
your way.
make my way, right? And so
Yeah.
that was like 20 or 30 minutes. So I'd had a conversation with Leanne Wolf, and she'd said like, even seconds before your body will know what's coming. So for 20 or 30 minutes, I was like, okay, what? I still was wondering if I was imagining it. But I sent a text to Dr. Eleanor because we've had these kind of cool conversations like this, and she would like tied it into my postnatal design information and stuff, and basically affirmed for me that I think what I thought happened did. Like it was almost like a psychic knowing it was coming, which I remember like replying to her via text because she wasn't being brutal or anything. It wasn't even anything like what would normally trigger me, but it
Mhm.
was enough that like my values and boundaries were being pushed by someone that shouldn't be doing that. And I just knew how to reply, and there was no solar plexus garbage of like trying to avoid conflict. It was like, no, my body is like hard no. Your body is saying, do you want to be pissed off and not, feel shitty for the next 3 days, or are you going to deal with this right fucking now?
Yeah.
And I just dealt with it. I haven't heard from her, and I'm not worried about how she's going to respond. Whereas old me would have been stressing about it. And then the UTI was off. It was gone. It was gone again. It was just,
Wow.
yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, we just got to pay attention because, yeah, those kind of things always happen to us. But if we're not centered, if we're not aware, we don't know how to identify what we're even sensing, yeah, we can just miss it.
Mhm.
Life just gets a lot more dull. I think it's a lot more magical and amazing when we can notice these little things, like, wow, my body can sense things from 20 minutes away, that's like amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
because it's actually happening right now. And like you said, you can feel people's aura on Zoom calls, and they're across the planet because the neutrinos are passing, and keeping us all connected data wise, moment to moment. And so the way my mind logically thinks about it is that, yeah, your body, we're all connected, to each other. And so we all, at any given moment, any one of those like signals can become intense, so to speak, to where we can make sense of what's coming through
Mm.
to, the radio dial, and yeah, we can get those downloads, even if you didn't get the UTI, or well, basically like, yeah, it's like the UTI was the physical effect of what was taking place. And had you not known what you know now, or to do what you did, you probably would have, yeah, had a full blown episode,
Mhm.
because you would have responded in a certain way, and
It would have festered. Like it would have,
yeah,
you know,
you
right? The
wouldn't have moved
whole,
it.
it would have, and now I can just like eradicate it.
Yeah,
And until I deal with that fissure, like there's actually a hole between my stomach and my bladder. So I need to get that fixed. And what happens, I'd get stressed and it would open, it expand, right?
yeah,
So now that I know what that is, I can manage it with my mind. But this time I got to go get ahead of it because somehow I knew it was coming.
wow.
And as you were responding to that, and I appreciate you not telling me I'm crazy for one, so because that helps with me going like, yeah, that happened. But like I've had some occasions where, and back to the plant medicine thing, my right ear will ring, if I'm on mushrooms, and like it's been incredible. There's been a couple of times where it rings in advance as well, and I've had some really trippy experiences with people where my right ear is ringing, 10, 15 minutes before. And so now
Yeah,
I know that I sort of like, okay, pay attention to what's going on. Like, you're either going to miss out on, at this point, I don't view it as you're going to miss out on something really cool happening. You're going to miss out on an experience. And because I'm here to experience things, it's like, it's kind of, even that is like, oh shit, something's coming. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I know I need to step into it. Like whatever is coming up that's going to be out of the ordinary. One of these kids is not like the others, you know, make
yeah,
your be available. And I also know not to approach based on how my aura mechanics work. I know I need to just be like sitting there available. And if
yeah,
I'm invited into that, there's a tractor beam. And it turns into hypnosis basically with that person often. So
hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or
We're all
trance.
definitely connected. Our bodies are freaking amazing, magical, like machines. They're able to do so many things that we just take for granted. You
Mhm.
know, so I can totally see how what happened to you can happen. Like
Mhm.
it's, yeah, pretty amazing. Magic in the mundane, and that's what Freemasons, all those cats, that kind of stuff. The ancient royal families and blah blah blah. They studied the human body. A lot of the encounters I imagine that took place in the past revealed certain things about the human body. You know, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's like we're having encounters with ourselves basically, because we're all cut from the same cloth. We just have yeah, different roles and positions.
Well, and steps are being laid out for me almost by previous happenings and things in my life. So, like you just brought up the stonemasons thing again. I had no idea that both my grandfathers were involved and my uncle. And yet my mom and my wife are like, it's a terrible organization because women are treated as less than men, or at least historically. So totally valid stuff, right?
Mhm.
But I was completely shielded from it to the point of not having any awareness that my family was involved in this. But my last name's Walbridge. Like, is there any more stonemason name? Right? Like, and then I'm
Paul
from,
Bridge.
right? So, and my mom's from Liverpool, my dad's Glasgow. So I'm Whitey McWhiterson, right? Now living in the west coast of Canada. Walbridge. I live across the street from a Mason Hall. Like literally, it's like right there. and
Yeah.
everything lit up with the moon over it, like it's trippy. And
Mm.
of course, then it drew me into the whole tree of life and that. But the other thing it turns out, the secrets I wasn't told, is my grandfather, so one of these Mason fellas, who also lived on, that's a whole other story, but he was working on what was called the Avro Aero car, which was a Canadian project in the late 50s and early 60s that was helping the US build a flying saucer. So it was called and it's like legit.
Mm.
It's like the thing that people reports. My
Yeah.
grandfather was working on the thing. Never mentioned that to me once. He,
Wow.
he would show me how to build a kite. He got me into computers. Never fucking
Wow.
said, dude, I worked on a flying saucer for the US until they seized the program and made it quiet. I'm like,
I was gonna say it's probably like a top secret kind of thing. You probably for your protection. There's a
yeah.
generation of people. I forgot what gate it was in, but Pluto was there, and I think it was maybe like in the 30s, or it could have been early 1900s. But it was about keeping secrets, keeping information from people for their own good. I forget the exact placement, but I looked at it because my grandfather, um, I was curious about his design because he withheld some information from the family at some point, and I look at his Pluto, and it's like literally that. So you never know like why they didn't tell. But yeah,
Well,
that's funny. Yeah.
it didn't include my dad, right? My dad was never involved in, all these influences, not passed to him at all. So maybe it was for his protection, was just, yeah, you need to skip a
Yeah.
generation. And so did I find it out of the curiosity, or did it find me? Like it's
Hmm.
so many things that are interesting about that. So
Right, right.
um,
Grandparents, yeah.
I gotta go. I'm going to a jam. It's my
All
last jam.
right.
Or I'm gonna be away from home for 3 weeks, so I gotta go play my drums. But I really enjoyed this, man. So anytime I hope to run into you in Santa Fe, and if not, if you want to chat again, there's so many places we can go with this conversation. So
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to put this on your channel, that's cool. It was
yeah, okay.
yeah,
I was
but-
wondering that, like I'd rather not edit things because I don't like to, and I don't think there's anything in there that's I wouldn't say anyways. So
right.
yeah,
Likewise.
yeah,
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it too. We can definitely do it again. And
cool.
yeah, we cross
All right, man.
paths out there. We'll see what it do.
Yeah, if you could shoot me a reminder or link, because I'm gonna run out the door and I know I'm gonna forget about the document you were talking about. Because I've been on your site before and I
Okay,
found
yeah. Yeah, I'll
the
do that.
right one. So yeah, I gotta pick that one up.
All
Cool.
right. Well, all right, man. You have a good one out there.
See you, bye.
Peace.